Welcome, Sens Talk. Welcome to Sens Talk. My name is Brandon Plant and I am your host. In today's video, we're going to talk about a few signings the Ottawa Senators made, sure for the big club, but primarily anyways for the Belleville Senators, which is equally as important. We want to see Belleville do well for our prospects and for our fans down there in Belleville. It's just good for the organization to have guys that help out in Belleville and can be called up in a pinch if necessary. And that's what basically all the signings today are. Starting off with Arthur Kaliyev. Now, this seems to be like the most expected news of all time. This is a guy that's been heavily connected to the Ottawa Senators for the last couple of years now, primarily because of his connection to the Bulldogs organization, won a championship there back in 2018 with Steve Stais and Michael Anlauer at the helm. So it seemed it was a matter of when, not if, Arthur Kaliyev would eventually sign with the Ottawa Senators. That has happened today on a one-year two-way contract. A little surprising, a two-way contract. Full details are not out. I've been waiting 2-3 hours. They still haven't released all the contract details. It's expected, though, to be $775,000 in the National Hockey League. So just to confirm, the Sens have confirmed the signing. Just the signing details aren't all out. All we know is a one-year deal, roughly, likely at $775,000 at the NHL level. But Arthur Kaliyev is a guy that, again, I'm a little surprised is on a two-way contract here, where clearly they see him as a guy that likely or has a good chance to be in Belleville anyways. When it was originally reported by Freeman and Leems Martian that Kaliyev would be joining the Ottawa Senators, I thought for sure NHL contract, one way. He's not going to Belleville. He's here to play on the Ottawa Senators as one of those guys that are looking for an opportunity somewhere else. And while that still remains the case, the Ottawa Senators are basically telling Arthur Kaliyev, we're impressed with you, we want you here, but you got to prove it. And I think that's the right mentality. That makes sense, especially for a guy like Kaliyev that has certainly, bounced around a bit. This is Kaliyev's third team in the last year or so. So again, Kaliyev, I'm sure, knows that this is not his last opportunity, but one of the last opportunities he's going to get to really, bolster himself and solidify himself as a National Hockey League winger. He's got all the ingredients for it to work out here. He's got the management that has familiarity with him and that he's clearly comfortable with. He's got an opportunity here in Ottawa where there are some holes, and he could definitely fill that because he's a pure goal scorer, which we'll talk about in a second. And again, you can't bounce around to a fourth team in the last year if you want to be a National Hockey League guy. So he knows that. If I know it, he obviously does. So I'm expecting big things out of Arthur Kaliyev, especially in training camp. I think, frankly, we have another potential Adam Gaudette situation on our hands. Remember when we signed the hockey god last year, and we all expected the 40-goal scorer in the AHL, that being Adam Gaudette, to, dominate there in Belleville and be the occasional call-up. Now, a lot of people are saying that with Arthur Kaliyev once again, and I think that's fair, especially considering it's a two-way contract. But Kaliyev brings 202 games of National Hockey League experience, averaging 12:05 time on ice, compiling 75 points in those 202 games, including 38 goals, 111 hits, and 22 blocks, 5-on-5 Corsi for percentage at 55.91, and 5-on-5 expected goals for percentage at 55.37. So this is a guy with over 200 NHL games of experience, all right? So not exactly someone that has no NHL opportunity whatsoever. This is a guy that absolutely can handle the National Hockey League game, and in my opinion, is a National Hockey Leaguer. I think this training camp, he's going to prove and solidify himself on the Ottawa Senator roster because, again, they need guys that could just put the puck in the back of the net, and that's exactly what Arthur Kaliyev is. Sure, he needs to work on other areas of his game, and speed absolutely is an issue, but if you put him on the third line on the second power play wave as well, you could definitely get 15, 30, 40 points out of him. Again, maybe I'm overzealous, but if the guy could stay healthy, and he's in a system, in a team that, has his back. Again, there's that connection with Stais and Anlauer, and, if he can gain that trust from Travis Green in training camp, I don't see why he can't score 15 goals next year if that all happens. Now, of course, that's a big if. The other scenario is it doesn't work out, and he's in Belleville, and he helps Belleville score some goals. That's also fine. Belleville needs some scorers, and we need scorers in Belleville that can be called up in a pinch if we need a guy that can fill in and potentially bring some offense. So either way, this is a great signing for the Ottawa Senators. You're bringing in a guy that, again, has played over 200 NHL games and has put in almost 40 goals in the National Hockey League. So a pure shooter. And again, Ottawa desperately needed that, especially in the organizational depth. So we'll see what happens. Again, I really think this is another Adam Gaudette type signing where, again, I think, unlike Oli yesterday, no disrespect to him, Kaliyev has 200 plus games of NHL experience. This is a guy that going into camp, I'm sure he expects to make the team, and he's going to fight like hell to make that happen. So having a hungry goal scorer on your team that's desperate to prove the naysayers wrong and solidify themselves into the National Hockey League world, so to speak, is not exactly a bad thing to have. Because worst case, again, he's putting the puck in the back of the net in Belleville. Best case, he's filling the net for your Ottawa Senators. So a nice little sneaky signing here for Steve Stais. Again, we'll see what happens, but I like it quite a bit. I think this just helps the organizational depth overall. And again, adding goal scorers for your team with 200 plus games of NHL experience does not hurt. Last year, he dealt with a lot of injuries, only playing in 14 games, averaging 11-13 on the ice, scoring 3 goals and 4 points in total. So again, if he can stay healthy and come out hot, this guy's a good chance to maybe make a home here in Ottawa. So with that, welcome to Ottawa, Arthur Kaliyev. Looking forward to seeing how you play. Before we continue, I just want to say thank you to Dylan Puckniak and Keller Williams Sports and Entertainment for sponsoring Sens Talk, as Sens Talk is proudly presented by Dylan Puckniak, Ottawa's exclusive realtor with Keller Williams Sports and Entertainment, providing a bilingual real estate service that serves the Ottawa-Gatineau community. Dylan Puckniak is also specialized in supporting professional athletes that come and go in our city, providing a service that takes care of the people at the highest level. For realtor experience that puts you and your needs first, visit dylanpuckniak.kw.com. That's dylanpuckniak.kw.com to find out more today. Again, thank you to Dylan Puckniak and Keller Williams Sports and Entertainment for sponsoring Sens Talk. So the Ottawa Senators today signed 2 different goaltenders. One was an undrafted prospect, which we'll talk about in a second, actually very impressive. And the other was, an AHL veteran that can basically fill in there as the third goaltender that brings a bit of NHL experience to the goaltending crease in the organization. That's exactly what I wanted the Ottawa Senators to do when I spoke to all of you yesterday in my Lars Eller, video, and I'm glad the Sens obliged and signed a veteran AHL starter. That, of course, is Hunter Shephard, the Shep Daddy, as he calls himself on social media. What an elite nickname for him. And what a flow this guy has. Look at your screen right now. This guy has a sick flow. So absolutely love this signing because, again, you needed a true starting AHL veteran there in Belleville to help solidify that crease with Matt Sogard for one, and to also help solidify the Ottawa Senators goaltending organizational depth chart. Again, now you have 2 goalies in Belleville with some NHL experience, and that's much better than the alternative, which was a goaltender that is still in development and has only played less than 50 games in the National Hockey League. So adding another goaltender to that again, God forbid something happens here in Ottawa and Sogard needs to be called up or Hunter gets called up, Belleville will still be fine and they won't take a hit either. So this is a big signing for that reason. And I want to emphasize that this is not just some ordinary AHL veteran goalie. This is a guy that won playoff MVP, won back-to-back Calder trophies, even won, the best goalie of the year in 2023-2024 in the AHL. So this is a very, very good AHL starting goaltender. And if you want your team to be successful, you want to have a guy like that. So this is a big deal AHL signing. And most of all, again, if you have good goaltending, everyone else should probably play a little better as well, with some confidence back there. So this is a good signing. And this is also a very good goaltender. I mean, for Belleville, this is a guy that can probably win them some games. 118 AHL games he's played, winning 78 of them, en route to a .914 save percentage and a 2.22 goals against average. So very, very good numbers for a very experienced goaltender at the AHL level. He's also played in 5 NHL games, winning 2 of them, with an .866 save percentage and a 3.94 goals against average. So yeah, he's going to likely share the crease there in Belleville with Matt Sogard. I would probably give the edge to Matt Sogard to be the starter, considering he's a prospect that's still in development. However, Hunter Shephard gives the Belleville Senators and the Ottawa Senators more depth in the crease, especially, again, if injuries happen at the big club or whatever other reason. Again, it doesn't hurt to bring in a goaltender that can stop some pucks, has a lot of veteran experience as well. So with that, welcome to Ottawa, Hunter Shephard. It's good to have, another goaltender in the organizational mix. And with that, let's get to the next player that Sens signed today. That would be Jackson Parsons out of the OHL of Kitchener Rangers. They signed the undrafted free agent goaltender to a 3-year entry-level contract. The CHL and OHL goalie of the year, that's right, last year was the best goaltender awarded anyways, best goaltender in the CHL and OHL, put up incredible numbers in his draft year. I don't know how he was not drafted. He is 20 years old, so a bit of an overager to be fair, but he did put up great numbers nonetheless, with a .920 save percentage and a 2.24 goals against average, winning 37 of the 52 games he played. That is very, very good numbers, especially for the OHL, a league that is well known, for the offense that's produced in that league, where goaltenders often have sub 900 at the best save percentages. So 920, very impressive. Now, again, he is 20 years old, so overager for sure. But that might help his development. You never know. Again, it doesn't hurt to sign a guy that put up numbers like that and just kind of see what happens, right? So, the Ottawa Senators drafted 2 goaltenders at the draft this year. They just signed Hunter Shephard and now Jackson Parsons as well. So that is like 4 goaltenders in the last 72 to 98 hours or whatever here in Ottawa that they've signed. So they really are doing quick work at restocking the organizational pipeline for goaltenders, and that never hurts. Again, goaltenders are such a wild card. If you throw enough darts at the board, one of them are going to hit. Maybe Jackson Parsons is that one that hit. So with that, welcome to Ottawa, Jackson Parsons, and congratulations on the National Hockey League contract. Again, a guy that won CHL and OHL Goalie of the Year last year deserves an NHL opportunity, or at the very least an entry-level contract to see what he can do potentially at the next level. So with that, congratulations to him, and it's great to have more depth in the organization. Before I talk about the last signing the Ottawa Senators announced today, which was actually a re-signing, I have another re-signing to talk about, as Wyatt Bongiovanni, fan favorite in Belleville, is back on a 1-year 2-way contract. Banjo baby is returning to Bell Vegas. Last year, he put up 22 goals, including 33 points in 54 games with the Belleville Senators. He was tied for first last year on Belleville for goals, tied with Angus Crookshank, friend of the show, the Crook Dog, of course, signed with the New Jersey Devils. Big loss for Ottawa and for Belleville. I think he's going to do great things there with the New Jersey Devils. But Wyatt Bongiovanni was tied for first in goals. You couldn't lose both of those guys, so at least they kept one of them, that being Bongiovanni. He has 43 points in 68 career games with the Belleville Senators as well. So one of their better offensive guys. You got to keep him around, and they did just that. Again, I understand Matt Turek's taking over, the new general manager of the Belleville Senators. There's going to be some expected changes. That makes sense. However, you can't change everyone and get rid of everyone, You got to keep some guys around for some familiarity with the fan base there in Belleville to sell some tickets. But just on the ice, for that locker room, you can't get rid of everyone. That would just have some negative effects for the locker room. Now, again, it is pro hockey. It especially is minor league hockey. So things change. There's a lot of turnover. That's expected, but complete turnover, it didn't make sense to not bring back, especially a guy like Wyatt Bongiovanni, who's done nothing but great things for the Belleville Senators ever since being traded over to here. So you got to keep some of those guys together. You got to keep some good depth for Belleville as well to keep them competitive. And Wyatt Bongiovanni is exactly that. So I'm very excited to see this deal for the Belleville Senators. Again, you're getting a veteran here of the AHL. 161 career games in the AHL, scoring 32 goals, 47 apples for 79 total points, with 377 shots on goal. So he's a shooter. He can put the puck on net and can put the puck into the back of the net. That's exactly what the Ottawa Senators need, and that's what they got in, of course, Banjo. So with that, welcome back to Belleville. Wyatt Bongiovanni. Now, another extension the Ottawa Senators made today was for 2 years on a 2-way deal with Hayden Hodgson. The enforcer is back with the Ottawa Senators organization. They needed an enforcer there in Belleville and throughout the organization, and they did just that by extending Hodgson, surprisingly, for 2 years. The only guy on this video that's got to more than a year on his contract. Last year with the B-Sens, Hodgson led the team in penalty minutes with 156. So again, he's a bruiser. He's not afraid to throw around the body, that's for sure. He also put up 11 points, including 5 goals in those 43 games with the Belleville Senators last year, and he brings 200-plus games of pro hockey experience to the organization. He's also appeared in 9 career NHL games, putting up 3 points, including a goal. He's been in a couple Ottawa Senator games. We saw him come up last year against the Canadiens as an example. When Jack Guy and all that nonsense was going on, we needed a big guy up here, and that's exactly what he is. If the Ottawa Senators find themselves in a situation where they need a bruiser and they don't want Braykochuk to be the guy that drops the gloves, expect Hayden Hodgson's name to be the first one called up. That's probably why he was signed for 2 years. So, again, a little bit of respect to him, especially giving him a bit more money for the job he has to do. But I'm sure he is more than happy doing this job. It's his career at the end of the day anyways, and he's damn good at doing his job. So for Belleville, he's going to be patrolling the ice down there. And at times, maybe even here in Ottawa, he'll be patrolling the ice. But again, it never hurts, especially in hockey. I don't care what anyone says about fighting and whatnot. Fighting is a part of the game of hockey. Whether you like it or not, you need guys on your team that can police the game for themselves. Hodgson is certainly that. So this is a nice signing for Belleville and Ottawa, purely because, again, we don't have many bruisers or enforcers in the organization. Now we do, with Hayden Hodgson. So welcome back to Ottawa, Hayden Hodgson. And again, this is another guy that I wouldn't put him on the bubble of making the roster, but he's going to be a guy that's going to get called up a couple of times. You'll see his name for sure. So just to recap, Arthur Kaliyev out of the bunch here is the one player I do expect likely to be a regular on the Ottawa Senators next year. The rest of these guys are depth signings that will fill out the organizational needs there in Belleville. But hey, again, you just never know. All of them really have NHL experience, and I'm sure all of them will see at some point going into next year for a game or two. Wyatt Bongiovanni, we didn't see him last year. Maybe he gets an opportunity. But again, yeah, Arthur Kaliyev is the big name out of this bunch. That's the guy that absolutely, in my opinion, just to add on before I finish up the video, that, again, in the right situation here in Ottawa, potentially even on the third line, the second power play wave, he can excel. So I think that's a really sneaky move, and the rest of the moves, again, it never hurts to add depth. So with that, let me know what you think in the comment section down below as always. Are you a fan of these signings? Are you not too thrilled? Let me know down below. And with that, thank you all for watching. I appreciate your support, and I will see you all very, very soon. Go Sens, go.